Imagine, just for a second, that you are standing on this really hard, cold concrete floor.
Yeah.
The air smells like, I don't know, ozone, industrial adhesive, and just straight up nervous sweat.
Yeah, that tension.
Exactly, the tension is thick. And you look up, and the ceiling is so high, it's basically lost in the gloom. But cutting right through that darkness are these blinding stadium-grade floodlights.
The kind that actually generate heat?
Right, the kind they use for the Super Bowl. They are literally hot on your skin. So you look to your left, you look to your right, and you see people, hundreds of them,
Real people too, right? Not actors.
real people, just everyday people. And every single one of them has the exact same look in their eyes. It's this cocktail of absolute terror and desperate clawing hope.
Because they know exactly what is looming over them in that room.
They can feel the physical weight of it. Looming over this entire scene is a prize pool that is so massive, it's so completely incomprehensible to the average person that it doesn't just pay off a credit card, it doesn't just buy a used Honda.
It changes everything.
It changes the trajectory of your entire bloodline. We are talking about millions of dollars in cold, hard cash. But here is the catch. And this is the part that makes your stomach just drop right into your shoes.
One mistake.
One mistake. One tiny microscopic slip. One moment where your focus breaks because you're tired or you're hungry or you just blinked at the exact wrong time and you were eliminated, gone, empty-handed, back to your normal life like absolutely nothing ever happened.
And the silence in a room like that right before the director calls action, that is heavy. I mean, that is the sound of pure, unadulterated psychological pressure.
It's suffocating. Now, what I'm describing to you, the listener, isn't a scene from some dystopian sci-fi novel. It's not The Hunger Games.
Though it borrows heavily from that aesthetic.
Oh, heavily. It's very Squid Game in its vibe. But this is happening right now, in the real world, on screens, in millions of pockets.
So welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling a really, really massive question.
Probably the biggest question in media today. Is this just a game show? Is this just a really expensive YouTube video? Or have we actually witnessed the complete disruption of traditional Hollywood by a single YouTuber?
It's a completely valid question. Are we looking at the actual future of all entertainment, or is this just some dystopian fear and hope loop that we literally just can't bring ourselves to look away from?
For you tuning in, whether you're prepping for a massive marketing meeting, or you're just fascinated by how the internet is entirely rewriting the rules of the global economy, our mission today is to unpack the MrBeast phenomenon, and specifically, the Beast Games.
And we aren't just reacting to clips here.
No, we are going deep. We have a massive stack of source material today that analyzes the scaling of the creator economy, the insane production logistics involved, the psychological engineering used to keep you hooked, and of course, the ethical implications of this level of sheer spectacle.
We're going to map this out systematically for you. We'll start with the physical reality, like how you actually build something this massive.
The nuts and bolts.
Right. Then we'll move into the psychological machinery, how they essentially engineer suspense. And finally, we're going to look at the business strategy, because honestly, that is where the real revolution is happening right now.
That model threatens traditional media gatekeepers in a way that absolutely nothing else has in the last decade. Okay, let's unpack this. Section 1, defining the beast. The sources call this a pivot to, quote, streaming scale.
Streaming scale, yeah.
What exactly does that mean? Because to me, I read that and it sounds like corporate buzzwords, but I know our sources suggest there's a lot more to it.
It definitely sounds like a buzzword, but it's actually a very specific term that signals a change in species. It's a complete evolutionary leap. When we talk about beast games, we really have to define it as a hybrid.
A hybrid of what?
Well, on one side, you have the viral energy of challenge culture, that fast-paced, high-energy YouTuber style where everything is extremely loud. You have quick cuts, constant visual stimulation.
Your TikTok brain stuff.
Exactly. But on the other side of that hybrid, you have the structural rigor of competitive entertainment.
So it's almost like if a TikTok challenge had a baby with the Super Bowl.
That is actually a great way to think about it.
Okay.
But let's go even deeper into that comparison. Contrast this with a standard vlog. For the last, 15 years, the creator economy has largely been defined by intimacy and incredibly low barriers to entry.
Right, a guy in his bedroom talking to a webcam.
Or a girl vlogging from the front seat of her car. It's small, it's personal. The whole appeal was that they were just like you. The barrier between creator and audience was almost non-existent. Beast Games is the total antithesis of that. This is the transition to streaming sale production.
It's definitely not just a webcam duct taped to a monitor anymore. The source material emphasizes this distinction really heavily. It's almost jarring how different it is from old school YouTube.
Think of it this way. Imagine a local band. They play in a garage. It's raw, it's authentic. You love them for their grit. You feel like you personally discovered them.
That is standard YouTube.
That's standard YouTube. Now, imagine that exact same band, but now they are playing a global stadium tour. There are pyrotechnics. There are synchronized drone light shows. There is a sound system that literally shakes the ground beneath your feet.
Okay, I see.
That is Beast Games. It's the same core DNA. It's still the band. It's still Jimmy and his crew. But the sheer scale has fundamentally altered what the experience is.
I love that analogy because when you're at the stadium tour, you expect a certain level of polish, right? You expect the fireworks, you expect the spectacle. If they just stood in the middle of a massive stadium with one acoustic guitar, you'd feel completely ripped off.
Precisely. You expect a premium product. And that brings us directly to the visual language of the show. The source material highlights high-end lighting and cinematic design. This isn't accidental at all. It's a deliberate signal.
A signal of what exactly?
Legitimacy. When the lighting looks like a prestige Netflix drama or a major broadcast network game show, it tells the viewer's brain something very specific. It says, this is an event.
Oh, interesting. So it separates it from the noise.
Exactly. It separates it from the millions of other videos uploaded every single minute where the lighting is blown out and the audio is super echoey. It says, pay attention, this actually matters. It's a psychological cue that justifies a longer runtime to the viewer.
It's the difference between watching your uncle's home movie and watching a Hollywood blockbuster. But here's the thing that absolutely blows my mind, and this is a perfect segue into our next section, the sheer physical size of it. We aren't talking about 10 people in a room seeing who can hold their breath the longest. We were talking about massive industrial scale operations.
The massive factor. This is where the actual logistics get incredibly complex.
Okay, so here's a thought for you listeners. We know it looks cool on a screen, but think about the sheer nightmare of actually pulling this off. How do you manage hundreds of people in one room without it turning into absolute unmitigated chaos? I mean, just organizing a dinner party for 12 people is stressful enough.
It's a total headache.
Right. Now imagine feeding, housing, and managing the physical safety of hundreds of highly competitive people who all desperately want to win millions of dollars.
It is a logistical labyrinth. You have to multiply that dinner party stress by 50 or 100. You aren't just turning on a camera. You have to think about union rules, catering, portable bathrooms, on-site medical staff, insane insurance liability policies.
The source material explicitly mentions hundreds of contestants and large crew operations. It honestly sounds closer to running a small military campaign than shooting an internet video.
It really is. Let's compare this to something traditional, like Survivor or Big Brother. Those are essentially the gold standards of reality competition, right?
Sure. Survivor has been running for decades. It's the blueprint for this stuff.
But look at the actual numbers. Survivor usually focuses on 16 to 20 people. They're out on an island, sure, but the cast is tiny. The narrative is completely contained.
You can learn all their names in the first episode.
Exactly. You can track every single conversation. The editors can craft a clean story arc around every single player. These games scales this exponentially. You aren't tracking 16 arcs. You are looking at a sea of humanity.
Which creates a totally different vibe for the viewer. In Survivor, you get to know everyone's backstory. You know about their kids back home. You know their job. You know their phobias. In Beast Games, it feels more like, I don't know, a battle royale, a war of attrition.
It is a battle royale. It completely de-individualizes the contestants initially. They aren't people. They are a mass. They are a swarm. And this comes from what the sources call escalation logic.
Escalation logic, walk me through that.
You have to trace the lineage of the content. It started with very simple YouTube challenges. Last person to leave this taped-off circle in my backyard gets $10,000. Simple, right?
Right. Very low stakes, very contained.
Then it became, last person to leave this private island gets $100,000.
Yeah.
Still the same concept, but bigger. Now it's platform-level production with hundreds of people and millions of dollars.
It's like a massive arms race, but you're only racing against yourself. You constantly have to beat your last video.
That is a perfect way to put it. There is a psychological concept in the source material called escalation addiction. Why can't they just go back to making smaller videos? Why can't MrBeast just go back to the circle in the backyard?
Because we'd get bored.
Partially that, yes. But mostly because once you build the massive set, once you give the audience that incredible dopamine hit of streaming scale spectacle, the audience permanently expects the next one to be bigger.
You set a new floor.
Exactly. You establish a baseline of awe. If you drop below that baseline, it feels like a failure. It feels like a massive regression to the viewer.
That is honestly terrifying from a production standpoint.
Yeah.
It's like saying, okay, today I jumped over a car on a motorcycle. Tomorrow I have to jump over a bus. Next week I have to jump over a Boeing 747. Where does it end? Do you eventually have to jump over the moon?
That is the ultimate existential question for this entire business model, and this connects directly to visual engineering. The sheer physical size of the set impacts the viewer's brain on a biological level. The source notes describe this as visual scale stimulating spectacle response.
Spectacle response. That sounds like some kind of M-culturist sci-fi concept. What does that actually mean in terms of our brain chemistry?
It's a very real psychological effect. When we see something truly massive, a huge crowd moving as one, a giant towering structure, a literal pile of physical cash the size of a minivan, it triggers a profound sense of awe.
Our brains just short circuit a little bit.
Right. It keeps eyes glued to the screen because our brains are evolutionarily hardwired to pay intense attention to things that are larger than life. It signals extreme importance. It triggers the exact same part of the primitive brain that reacts to standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon or watching a massive thunderstorm roll in. You literally have to look.
So the size isn't just for show. It's not just flexing budget. It's a calculated retention tactic. It's hacking our biology so we don't click away.
Absolutely. It is pure calculated engineering.
Okay, so we've got the massive physical sets, we've got the hundreds of panicked people, we've got the escalation addiction hacking our brains. But here's where it gets really interesting. And listeners, I really want you to think about this. We know the show looks cool, but who is actually paying for this massive prize pool and why? Because the answer to that question actually redefines the entire modern media business.
This is the business engine, section 3 of our deep dive.
The sources talk heavily about a platform partnership strategy. Why are massive streaming platforms, the Amazons, the Netflixes of the world, so desperate to collaborate with these large YouTube creators? I mean, Amazon basically has infinite money. Why do they need a 20-something YouTuber?
It all comes down to one absolutely vital key concept: subscriber acquisition potential. Or, if we want to get into the business terminology, reducing the customer acquisition cost, the CC.
Okay, let's unpack that acronym. What is CAC in plain English?
Think about how traditional television works. If a major network or a streaming service launches a brand new sci-fi show, they have to buy physical billboards in Times Square. They have to run audio ads on the radio. They have to run pre-roll ads on YouTube.
You have to put commercials during other football games to tell people, hey, come watch this new thing.
Right. They have to actively hunt for viewers. They have to pay a massive premium to agencies just to get your attention for 5 seconds.
So they are basically fishing in a giant ocean, and the bait is incredibly expensive.
Exactly. Now look at a mega creator. He doesn't need to fish. He already owns his own ocean. He brings a literal city of people, his loyal audience, with him wherever he goes on the internet. He has hundreds of millions of subscribers who get a push notification on their phone the exact second he posts anything.
I really like that visual. He's not just a person making a video, he's a portable city.
Yes, a portable demographic. When a streaming platform partners with a creator of that size, they aren't just buying a fun game show, they are buying that migration. They are paying for him to open the digital gates of his city and march his millions of citizens over to their specific platform to sign up for monthly subscriptions. They aren't paying for the content, they are paying for the user acquisition.
So instead of buying 1,000 billboards across the country, they just buy the creator. It's a bulk purchase of human eyeballs.
Precisely. This is what the sources call audience migration. Moving a built-in, highly loyal audience from YouTube, which is entirely free and ad-supported, over to a streamer, which is a walled garden that requires a paid monthly subscription. That migration is the holy grail for these tech companies.
And the source material explicitly mentions direct audience ownership.
That is the core power shift right there. In the old days of media, the network owned the audience. You watched Channel 4 because you were tuned into Channel 4. You watched whatever they put on at 8 o'clock. Now, the creator holds that power. If a massive creator moves to a different platform, a huge chunk of the audience just packs up and follows them. The loyalty is strictly to the person, not the channel or the corporate logo.
That is a staggering amount of leverage for one person to have. That allows them to negotiate business deals that traditional Hollywood showrunners could only dream of.
It is unprecedented leverage, and it opens up entirely new revenue models. The sources mention brand extension, and this asks a fascinating question. Is the show the actual product, or is the show just a really elaborate, high-budget commercial for the creator's other brands?
You mean like the branded burgers and the chocolate bars they sell at Walmart?
Exactly. This is vertical integration at its finest. When you have 50 million people watching a challenge video and the branding is seamlessly integrated, the contestants are wearing the creator's logo, they are eating the creator's branded food during the breaks. The show itself becomes a marketing vehicle for an entire corporate ecosystem.
So it's a giant flywheel.
It is a perfect flywheel. The show drives the retail brand sales, the retail brand profits, then fund the next massive show. The next show gets even bigger. The retail brand gets even bigger. It feeds itself.
It's undeniable genius, but it's also just relentless. It feels like a machine that literally cannot be turned off. It's definitely not art for art's sake. It's art for commerce's sake.
It is a hyper-optimized machine. And that machine runs on one very specific, very potent fuel, human emotion.
Which brings us perfectly to the psychology of the game. This is the deepest dive we're going to take today, listeners, because honestly, we need to get inside the heads of the contestants and the viewers. Why do we love watching desperate people stress out over money? Is there something fundamentally broken in us?
Well, it's not necessarily that there is something wrong with us morally, but our brains are absolutely being hacked by the format. We are biologically wired to respond to high-stakes scenarios.
Okay, tell me more about that. How exactly are they getting inside our heads and keeping us on the couch?
The source material identifies a very specific psychological loop that the producers utilize. It's called the fear and hope loop.
Okay, let's break that loop down. Step one.
It's a constant push and pull. On one side of the equation, you have hope. That is the life-changing cash prize sitting in the middle of the room. We aren't talking about winning a new toaster oven or a trip to Florida. We are talking about money that instantly pays off 30-year mortgages, erases crushing student loans, covers insane medical bills.
It represents total freedom.
Right. It represents a completely new life.
It's the American dream distilled into a duffel bag of cash. It's the ultimate lottery fantasy.
And on the exact opposite side of that coin, you have fear, the very real threat of high-stakes elimination, the constant gnawing knowledge that at any second, that incredible dream can be violently snatched away because you stepped 1 inch to the left, or you dropped a plastic ball, or you trusted the wrong person.
And the editors in post-production, they know this. They aren't just passively documenting what happened, they are actively crafting it into a weapon.
Oh, they are absolute masters of it. This is what the sources call suspense engineering. They edit the footage to toggle your brain back and forth between these two extreme emotions rapidly. Hope, fear, hope, fear. They show someone crying about wanting to help their sick mom, then immediately show them almost failing a physical challenge. It keeps your adrenaline constantly spiked. You physically cannot look away because your brain demands resolution. You desperately need to know if the hope wins or the fear wins.
It's literal emotional whiplash.
Yeah.
Which completely explains why you feel physically exhausted after watching a 40-minute video of people playing tag.
It is exhausting. And that exhaustion is compounded by another concept from the text. Social comparison psychology.
That the whole what would I do in that situation thing?
Exactly. When you see a contestant on one of these massive sets, you don't just see a random stranger. You automatically project yourself onto them. You see a 25-year-old college student drowning in debt and you think, that's me. You see a father trying to win money to buy his kids a house and you think, I would do that. You start actively asking yourself the questions. Could I hold my hand on that freezing block of ice for an hour? Would I betray my best teammate if it guaranteed me $50,000?
I do that literally all the time. I'm sitting on my incredibly comfortable couch, eating a bowl of popcorn, completely convinced I could win the $1 million.
Yeah.
I'm shouting at the screen like, oh, I would totally dominate that elaborate game of hide and seek. These people are amateurs.
We all do it. It's human nature. And that's the viewer attachment the sources talk about. We bond with their struggle because it validates our own daily struggles. We want to see the everyman win.
The sources also mention that the cash prizes themselves act as emotional triggers. How is a stack of money an emotional trigger?
Well, think about a traditional game show like Jeopardy! In Jeopardy, the money is essentially just a score. It's a metric of how smart you are. It's nice to win, obviously, but it's a scoreboard. In Beast games, the money is pure survival. It's deeply emotional. It transforms the mechanics of a simple game into a profound, life altering narrative. It raises the stakes from simply winning a trivia game to essentially surviving late stage capitalism.
It's the golden ticket effect, like Charlie Bucket peeling back the wrapper and finding the golden ticket in the chocolate bar.
That is a perfect analogy. It represents a magical, sudden escape from the crushing normalcy of daily life, and that is incredibly, incredibly powerful television.
And here is the crucial turn for this section. Listeners, is there a dark side to this magic trick? We are actively dangling life-changing money in front of normal, often desperate people purely for our own entertainment. We really need to look at the ethics of this.
This is definitely where the conversation gets incredibly difficult, and the source material raises some very sharp, uncomfortable questions about the whole genre.
The big one being what the text calls the exploitation question.
Right. And we need to be very balanced here because there are two extremely valid, completely opposing ways to look at this, and the sources reflect that deep tension. We can't just paint it broadly as all good or all bad.
Okay, let's hear argument A, the defense.
Argument A is the highly optimistic view. This perspective says this is a pure opportunity. It gives regular people a genuine chance at generational wealth they would never, ever have access to in their normal 9 to 5 lives. Even if they lose the main prize, they usually walk away with something, or at least they got a crazy once-in-a-lifetime experience. It's essentially a lottery ticket, but with vastly better odds. Some argue it's a bizarre form of modern philanthropy disguised as internet entertainment. The creator is freely giving away money that he earned from sponsorships.
Okay, I can see that side of the coin. Someone wins a house, their life is permanently better, that's an objective good in the world. What's argument B? The prosecution.
Argument B is much darker. It argues that this format actively turns real financial desperation into popcorn entertainment for the masses. It takes the very real economic anxiety people feel every day, the fear of poverty, the desperate desire for baseline security, and packages it as a highly edited consumer product. It trivializes human struggle by turning it into a brightly colored carnival game.
Oof. When you phrase it like that, it hits different. There's a quote from the source here. Is money being used as emotional manipulation?
It's a completely valid ethical question. Look, if I dangle a briefcase with $1 million in front of you, I can make you do almost anything. I can make you cry on camera. I can make you run on a treadmill until you physically collapse and vomit. I can make you viciously turn on your new friends. Is it ethically sound to use that extreme financial leverage just to get more views on an app? Where exactly is the line between a fun game show and a cruel psychological experiment?
It's like the Stanford prison experiment, but with insanely good cinematic lighting and a cash prize at the end.
It's a very provocative comparison, but not entirely unwarranted. And intrinsically connected to that ethical dilemma is the sustainability of escalation.
We touched on this earlier, the audience's addiction to bigger and bigger spectacles.
But apply that escalation to the actual money now. If you give away $1 million today and the audience gets used to that dopamine hit, do you have to give away $5 million tomorrow? Where does it mathematically end? If the prize pool just stays at $1 million forever, does the audience eventually get bored and tune out?
I can totally see the comment section now. Oh, it's only $1 million this time. Skip.
Exactly. We become rapidly desensitized, and that forces the creator to keep drastically raising the stakes, which makes the ethical questions we just discussed even more intense. If you have to make people suffer more or risk more to get the same amount of views, where is the ultimate starting point?
And then, towering over all of this, there's the issue of concentrated power. The sources call it creator power concentration.
This is a fascinating structural shift. In old Hollywood, the classic studio system, you had major studios, you had powerful labor unions, networks, massive standards and practices departments. There were rigid checks and balances everywhere, teams of lawyers, massive HR departments, safety coordinators who could shut down a set.
A whole army of gatekeepers.
Yes, gatekeepers. Now, what happens when one single individual, a 20-something YouTuber, suddenly has the operating budget and the global reach of a major film studio, but completely lacks that traditional infrastructure of institutional oversight? Who is in the room to tell them no?
It's the Wild West. It's just a guy and his friends making the rules up as they go.
It is the Wild West, a very, very well-funded Wild West. You are relying entirely on the personal moral compass of the creator rather than a codified system of institutional checks and balances.
Which brings us to the broader macro picture of the media landscape, because this isn't just about MrBeast. He is just the apex predator of this specific ecosystem. This is a massive, flashing neon signal that the traditional gatekeepers of media are dying. Or at the very least, they are on permanent life support.
Which leads us into section 6, the shift in the creator economy.
We are seeing entirely independent creators entering what the sources call mainstream scale production.
This is the massive historical pivot we are living through right now. For the last 100 years, if you wanted to make a television show with a massive physical set and a multi-million-dollar budget, you had to fly to Los Angeles, get a meeting with a powerful studio executive, pitch your idea, and pray they said yes. You had to wear a suit, you had to have a connected agent.
You essentially had to beg for permission to make art.
You absolutely needed permission. You needed someone else to give you a green light and cut the check. Now, you just need a high-speed internet connection and an audience. The reduced dependency on traditional gatekeepers is the massive headline of this decade.
It's incredibly democratizing, isn't it? It objectively proves you don't actually need the old guard to reach the masses.
In an ideal world, yes, it is beautifully democratizing, but it also completely upends the traditional power dynamics of the industry. The leverage has completely flipped.
How so? Walk me through the leverage flip.
Well, it used to be that the platform, say a broadcast network or even early Netflix, held all the cards. They said to the creator, we will generously allow you to broadcast on our airwaves and you will take the deal we offer. Now, the hyper-successful talent, the creator, holds all the cards. They go to the platform and say, I am bringing 50 million loyal viewers to your service. What are you going to offer me to bless you with my presence?
It's the Taylor Swift effect applied to video. She basically is the music industry at this point. She decided to re-record her entire catalog, and massive record labels just had to sit there and deal with it.
That is the exact same dynamic. When the talent becomes larger and more influential than the distributor, the entire foundational business model of Hollywood breaks. The massive studios get reduced to being mere service providers for the talent rather than being the all-powerful bosses of the talent.
And listeners, here's a massive reality check, so catch this next point. We've spent a lot of time talking about the amazing upside. We've talked about the unprecedented power and the huge money. But what about the inevitable crash? Is this entire streaming scale financial model actually just a massive precarious bubble?
Yeah.
Because building literal stadiums for single YouTube videos, that sounds impossibly expensive to sustain.
It is astronomically, mind-bogglingly expensive.
Yeah.
And that critical vulnerability leads us to section 7, financial realities and risks.
The sources spend a lot of time discussing budget versus ROI.
ROI being return on investment. It's the boring spreadsheet accounting part of the conversation, but it's arguably the single most important part, determining if this exists in 5 years. Can these absolutely massive sets actually generate enough revenue to pay for themselves?
I mean, let's think about it. A daily vlog costs basically nothing to make. You buy a nice camera once, you hit record, you upload it. The profit margin on a vlog with 10 million views must be essentially 99%. But Beast Games, the overhead must be eating them alive.
The overhead is staggering. You have to pay hundreds of union crew members, specialized insurance, raw construction materials, city permits, travel and lodging for hundreds of contestants, catering, and of course, the millions in prize money itself. And then you have the massive post-production costs hiring banks of editors to comb through thousands of hours of terabyte footage. The break-even point for a single video is incredibly, unbelievably high. You need tens of millions of views just to make your initial money back, let alone actually turn a profit to fund the next one.
So it's the ultimate high-risk, high-reward play.
Extremely high risk. The sources specifically mention risk exposure. Yeah. Think about the classic analogy of the basket.
Putting all your eggs in one fragile basket.
Exactly. If you make a cheap daily vlog and one video totally flops with the algorithm, it's completely fine. You lost a few hours of work. You just make the next one tomorrow. But if you spend 6 grueling months and $10 million building a massive Beast game set and it flops, or worse, it gets demonetized by YouTube, or there's a massive public controversy and sponsors flee.
That's a catastrophic company-ending hit.
It's an enormous financial blow. You are putting massive, massive capital at extreme risk on a single digital asset. It's the exact same problem as the Hollywood blockbuster movie model, and we've seen how traditional studios constantly struggle with that. If you have one massive bomb at the box office, it can bankrupt the studio.
And there are complex sponsorship structures to consider too, right?
Oh, absolutely. To independently fund a $10 million video, you need massive corporate sponsors. That inherently means you are completely beholden to them. If a huge sponsor pulls out at the last second because of bad PR, the entire production collapses overnight. So while you proudly claim you don't have a crusty studio executive telling you what to do, you might actually just have a nervous corporate brand manager at a soda company telling you what to do.
So you really just swapped one boss in a suit for another boss in a slightly nicer suit.
In many structural ways, yes. The millions of dollars still have to come from somewhere. True independence is profoundly expensive.
So given all these immense risks, is this the peak? Are we living in the golden age of this right now, or are we just getting started? That's the big question for our final section.
Section 8, the future outlook.
The sources directly ask, is this the actual peak of spectacle entertainment?
It brings up the very real threat of attention fatigue. We touch on this with the escalation addiction. Can human audiences physically keep up with this pace?
I definitely feel it sometimes. I watch these hyper-edited videos, and I'm just completely exhausted by the end. There's so much screaming, so much intense background music, so many jarring quick cuts. Will we eventually just burn out and want to watch, I don't know, a guy silently painting a fence for an hour?
There is a very prominent sociological theory that media trends are highly cyclical. We might see a massive cultural return to what they call slow media, a return to grounded storytelling that actually breathes. If the spectacle becomes overwhelmingly loud everywhere you look, absolute silence becomes the new, highly sought-after novelty.
That's actually really deep. Silence is the new luxury item in the attention economy.
But for right now, the momentum is still relentlessly upward. The real industry question is, can other creators successfully replicate this model?
Right. Is MrBeast just a total unicorn? A completely unique historical anomaly?
The sources strongly suggest he might be exactly that. The barrier to entry right now, the sheer capital required, the logistical mastery, the institutional knowledge is now so impossibly high that it might actually severely hurt smaller, up-and-coming creators who are trying to compete in the same genre.
That makes sense. If I'm a brand new YouTuber today, I can't exactly build a fully functional Squid Game set in my parents' backyard. I literally cannot compete with that level of production value.
Exactly. So if the global audience permanently expects that insane level of quality as the bare minimum, the little guy gets completely squeezed out of the market. It creates a massive, uncrossable moat around the top 3 or 4 creators. It becomes structurally harder to break into the industry than ever before.
So the democratized internet, ironically, just becomes a winner-take-all monopoly economy.
It really does. And that brings us to the ultimate strategic questions moving forward. What actually happens if the audience's spectacle response totally numbs over time? If we completely stop being impressed by the physical size of the massive sets?
Then they have to find a completely new magic trick. Or maybe the trick isn't about size at all anymore.
Or they have to evolve all the way back to basic human storytelling. They have to find a way to make us deeply care about the actual people involved, not just the massive explosions going off behind them.
It really always comes back to the story, doesn't it?
Always. Technology completely changes, the scale of production changes, the distribution platforms change, but the fundamental human desire for a compelling narrative remains totally constant. We inherently want to know who wins, not just what object they win.
Okay, let's bring this all home. We've been on quite an intense journey today.
We really have covered a massive amount of ground.
We started with the sheer mind-boggling logistical marvel of Beast Games, the literal stadium tour of YouTube. We looked at the underlying business model that is currently terrifying traditional Hollywood, treating global audiences like portable cities that can just be migrated from platform to platform at will. We dove really deep into the psychology, the primal fear and hope loop that keeps us glued to the screen, actively hacking our brain's dopamine receptors. And we looked at the massive risks, the terrifying financial tightrope walk of high-budget independent production.
It is an incredibly complex, fragile ecosystem. It's absolutely not just internet content anymore. It is a massive global industry. It is a fundamental economic force.
So, for you, the listener sitting there, why does any of this actually matter to your life? Because we are watching the very definition of celebrity in studio completely change in real time. We are all active participants in this massive attention economy. Every single time we click a thumbnail, every time we subscribe, every minute we watch, we are directly voting with our time for what the entire future of human entertainment is going to look like.
Precisely. We are the required fuel for this massive machine. Without our collective eyeballs, the entire multi-million-dollar machine just grinds to a halt.
And I want to leave you with this final, truly provocative thought, something derived from everything we've read and discussed today. Think about this. If the only possible way to keep our collective attention is to constantly, relentlessly increase the stakes, to constantly increase the massive prize money, to constantly make the physical sets bigger and more dangerous, are we actually watching entertainment anymore? Or are we just watching a massive, unprecedented economic experiment on human behavior that literally has no finish line?
That really is the ultimate question here. When and how does the game actually stop?
Something heavy to mull over while you're mindlessly scrolling through your feed tonight. Thank you so much for diving deep with us today.
Until next time.
Catch you on the next deep dive.